Babe, I need to tell you something.
What is it?
The child our house help, Rita, gave birth to is actually my son.
You mean Rita's child is yours?
Yes, babe.
How could you do this to me?
I'm sorry.
Sorry won't change what you've done, Sammy.
Babe.
Don't. I trusted you, Sammy. I really trusted you.
The child Rita, our maid, gave birth to is mine, Sammy said. Angie froze. She stared at him. For several seconds, she could not even blink. What did you just say? Angie froze. I am the father of Rita's child. If you're not okay with the news, you can move out, Sammy repeated. Angie stood up in shock, so quickly that the chair moved backward. Sammy was the kind of man people spoke about even when he was not in the room. At 38, he had built a business empire that stretched across several cities in Nigeria. He owned real estate, hotels, logistics companies, and a chain of luxury supermarkets. His name appeared regularly in business magazines, and whenever he arrived at an event, people turned their heads. But despite all the money surrounding him, there was one thing Sammy had never been able to buy: a child. He had been married to Angie for 7 years. 7 years of beautiful vacations. 7 years of expensive gifts. 7 years of living in a mansion that had more rooms than they knew what to do with. But not once had a baby's cry been heard inside their home. Angie had tried everything. She had visited hospitals in Lagos and Abuja. She had taken medications prescribed by doctors. She had prayed with women who promised her that their testimonies would become hers. She had even traveled outside the country with Sammy for medical examinations. Every time, she returned with hope. And every time, the hope slowly disappeared. Yet Sammy never openly blamed her. At least, that was what Angie believed. Their mansion was located in one of the most expensive parts of Lagos. It had tall gates, security guards, a swimming pool, a beautifully landscaped garden, and several rooms that were hardly ever used. They had 4 domestic workers. Among them was Rita, a young woman in her mid-20s who had worked in the mansion for almost 2 years. Rita was quiet, hardworking, and respectful. Nobody in the house had ever complained about her. That particular morning, Angie sat alone in one of the living rooms, watching the morning news on television. She was dressed in a simple cream-colored gown. Her hair was neatly packed, and a cup of tea sat untouched on the glass table in front of her. The news presenter was discussing a new economic policy when Angie heard a knock. 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 She lowered the volume of the television. "Come in," Angie said. The door slowly opened. Rita stepped inside. But something was wrong. Angie immediately noticed it. Rita's hands were trembling. Her eyes were red, and her lips shook as she stood beside the door. Angie sat up properly. "Rita, what is wrong with you?" Angie asked. Rita opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Did something happen?" Angie asked again. That was when Rita suddenly burst into tears. She walked toward Angie, dropped to her knees, and clasped her hands together. "Madam, please forgive me. Please do not send me away," Rita begged. Angie stared at her in confusion. "Send you away for what?" Angie asked. Rita cried harder. "I am sorry, madam. I did not know how to tell you," Rita said. Angie stood up. "Rita, you are frightening me. Tell me what happened," Angie said. Rita wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "I am pregnant," Rita whispered. For several seconds, Angie said nothing. The television continued playing in the background, but she could no longer hear what the presenter was saying. Pregnant. The words seemed to echo inside her head. "You are what?" Angie asked. "I am pregnant, madam," Rita repeated. Angie stared at her. Then, strangely, a small smile appeared on her face. It was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a person made when something was so shocking that the brain needed time to understand it. Pregnant? Angie asked again. Yes, madam, Rita replied. But how? Angie asked. Rita lowered her head. How did this happen? Angie asked. You are always here. You hardly go anywhere, except when you are sent on an errand. So when did this happen? Rita became even more uncomfortable. Madam, there were some days you sent me to the market, Rita explained. And, Angie asked. Sometimes, I would meet my man friend, Rita admitted. Angie's eyes widened. Your man friend? Angie asked. Rita nodded. Yes, madam. Angie walked slowly toward the window. She folded her arms and stared outside. So you were meeting a man while working here? Angie asked. I am sorry, madam. It was not always, Rita replied. Where were you meeting him? Angie asked. Rita hesitated. At a hotel, she finally admitted. Angie turned around sharply. A hotel? Angie asked. Rita nodded. Angie could not believe what she was hearing. She sat down again. For a few moments, she simply stared at Rita. Then she asked the question that immediately came to her mind. Have you told the man responsible? Angie asked. Rita nodded. I told him, Rita replied. And what did he say? Angie asked. Rita's face changed. He refused to accept the pregnancy, Rita said. Angie's expression softened. Why? Angie asked. He said he was not ready for a child. He said I should find a way to remove it, Rita replied. Angie looked at her stomach. The girl was still young. She had come to the mansion to work and support herself. Now she was pregnant, abandoned and terrified of losing her job. Angie sighed. Go to your room for now, Angie said. Rita looked up quickly. Madam, please. Go to your room, Angie repeated. Rita's eyes filled with tears again. Please do not send me away. I have nowhere else to go, Rita pleaded. I have heard you, Angie said. But madam, Rita, go to your room. I need to think, Angie said. Rita slowly stood up. She bowed her head and walked out. The moment the door closed behind her, Angie sat motionless. She looked at the television, then at the untouched tea, then at the door through which Rita had just disappeared. Something about the situation made her uncomfortable, but she could not have imagined what was waiting for her. That evening, when Sammy returned home, he found Angie unusually quiet. He walked into their bedroom after taking his shower and noticed that she was sitting on the edge of the bed. What happened? Sammy asked. Angie looked up. Sammy, something happened today, Angie said. What happened? Sammy asked. Rita came to see me this morning, Angie said. Sammy stopped moving, only for a second, but Angie noticed it. Rita? Sammy asked. Yes, Angie replied. What did she want? Sammy asked. Angie took a deep breath. She told me she is pregnant, Angie said. Sammy's face remained strangely calm. Angie watched him carefully. I thought you would be surprised, Angie said. Sammy placed his phone on the bedside table. Pregnant? Sammy asked. Yes. Who is responsible? Sammy asked. Her man friend, according to her, Angie replied. Sammy nodded. That is unfortunate, Sammy said. Angie frowned. You are too calm, Angie said. What do you want me to do? Sammy asked. I do not know. I am simply telling you what happened, Angie replied. Sammy sat beside her. She can remain in the house, he said. Angie looked at him. What? She can stay, Sammy repeated. Until she gives birth? Angie asked. She can stay as long as she wants, Sammy replied. Angie studied his face. Are you sure? Angie asked. Yes, Sammy replied. Won't people talk? Angie asked. Sammy shrugged. People will always talk, Sammy said. Angie nodded slowly. At that moment, she thought her husband was simply being compassionate. She did not know that Sammy was hiding a secret that would soon destroy everything she believed about her marriage. Weeks passed. Rita's stomach began to show. Angie noticed that Sammy's attitude toward her was changing. Whenever Rita attempted to carry something heavy, Sammy immediately stopped her. "Leave that," Sammy said. "I can handle it, sir," Rita replied. "I said leave it," Sammy insisted. Sometimes, Sammy would ask the other workers to prepare special meals for Rita. He would ask if she had taken her medication. He would even instruct the driver to take her to the hospital whenever she complained of discomfort. At first, Angie thought nothing of it. Sammy is simply being kind, she told herself. After all, Rita was carrying a child. But gradually, something began to bother her. One afternoon, Angie walked into the kitchen and found Sammy standing there with Rita. Rita was holding a bowl of fruits. Sammy was telling her something quietly. The moment they noticed Angie, they stopped talking. "Why are you standing here?" Angie asked. "I came to check on her," Sammy replied. Angie smiled. "Check on her?" she asked. "She said she was feeling dizzy," Sammy explained. Rita quickly nodded. "Yes, madam," Rita said. Angie looked from Rita to Sammy. "All right," she said. She walked away. But something inside her had begun to whisper. Something was wrong. She simply did not know what. By the time Rita was 8 months pregnant, Sammy had become almost protective of her. One evening, Angie returned from a salon appointment and saw Sammy personally carrying Rita's bag into the house. She stopped at the entrance. Her husband rarely carried his own bags. Yet here he was carrying Rita's. "Sammy," Angie called. He turned. "Oh, you are back," Sammy said. Angie smiled. "Why are you carrying Rita's bag?" Angie asked. "She is pregnant," Sammy replied. "I know," Angie said. "Then why are you asking?" Sammy asked. Angie laughed softly. "I am only asking," she replied. She walked past them, but that night she could not sleep. She kept thinking about the way Sammy looked at Rita, the way he spoke to her, the way he protected her, the way he seemed to know everything about her pregnancy. Still, Angie convinced herself that she was imagining things. After all, she had been married to Sammy for 7 years. She trusted him. Or at least, she thought she did. Then came the day Rita gave birth. The baby was a boy, a healthy baby boy. The news spread through the mansion. The workers congratulated Rita. Angie even bought baby clothes. She stood outside the hospital room and watched Rita hold the child. For a moment, she felt something strange in her chest. She was genuinely happy for the baby, but there was also a small ache she could not explain. She had dreamed of holding a child like that for years. When Sammy arrived at the hospital, his reaction shocked Angie. He walked straight to Rita. He looked at the baby. Then he smiled. Not the polite smile of a man congratulating someone. It was the smile of a father seeing his child for the first time. Angie's heart skipped. "Sir, come and see the baby," Rita said. Sammy moved closer. He gently touched the baby's tiny hand. "Welcome to the world," Sammy whispered. Angie stood at the doorway. She felt uncomfortable, but she said nothing. She believed the truth would eventually reveal itself. She was right. It did, but not in the way she expected. 3 weeks after Rita returned from the hospital, Sammy called Angie into the living room. His face was unusually serious. "Sit down," Sammy said. Angie sat. "Why do you look so serious?" Angie asked. Sammy remained standing. "There is something I need to tell you," Sammy said. Angie looked at him. "What is it?" Angie asked. Sammy took a deep breath. "The child Rita gave birth to is mine," Sammy said. Angie froze. She stared at him. For several seconds, she could not even blink. "What did you just say?" Angie asked. "I am the father of Rita's child," Sammy repeated. Angie stood up so quickly that the chair moved backward. No, she whispered. Sammy said nothing. No, you are lying, Angie said. I am not lying, Sammy replied. Angie stared at him. Then she laughed. It was a broken, painful laugh. You? She asked. Yes, Sammy replied. Rita? Angie asked. Yes, Sammy replied. Angie's knees weakened. She grabbed the back of the chair. You were seeing our maid? Angie asked. Sammy looked away. It happened, he replied. It happened, Angie repeated. Her voice cracked. You destroyed our marriage and you are calling it happened. Sammy remained silent. Angie began crying. How long? She asked. Sammy did not answer immediately. How long has this been happening? Angie asked again. Before she became pregnant, Sammy finally replied. Angie covered her mouth. Her entire body shook. 7 years. 7 years of marriage. 7 years of hospital visits. 7 years of prayers. 7 years of believing that her husband was standing beside her, and all along, he had been secretly seeing the young woman who walked inside their home. But what Sammy said next nearly broke her completely. Rita and the baby will move into the master bedroom, Sammy said. Angie looked at him as though she had suddenly stopped understanding English. The master bedroom? She asked. Yes, Sammy replied. Your bedroom? Angie asked. Our bedroom, Sammy corrected. Angie stared at him. You want me to leave my bedroom? She asked. Sammy nodded. There are other rooms in this house, he said. Angie wiped her tears. You want me to move out so Rita can sleep in our room with your baby? She asked. That is what I am saying, Sammy replied. Angie shook her head. This cannot be happening. It is happening, Sammy said. Sammy, please, after everything I have endured with you, you cannot do this to me, Angie pleaded. Sammy's expression remained cold. If you are not comfortable with it, you can leave, he said. Angie looked at him. Leave? Yes, Sammy replied. You are asking your wife to leave her own home because you got another woman pregnant, Angie asked. Sammy folded his arms. I will not chase away the mother of my child, he said. Angie's eyes widened. Mother of my child. Those words struck her harder than anything else he had said. She slowly walked toward the staircase. She looked at the master bedroom upstairs, the bedroom where she and Sammy had shared 7 years of marriage, the room where they had celebrated birthdays, the room where they had cried together after another failed pregnancy treatment, the room where Sammy had once promised her that they would grow old together. Now he wanted another woman and her newborn baby to occupy it. Angie climbed the stairs with tears running down her cheeks. But as she reached the corridor, she heard something that made her stop. Rita was inside the master bedroom, and she was speaking to someone on the phone. Angie stood silently outside the half-open door. Then Rita said something that made Angie realize that the story Sammy had told her was not the whole truth. Madam Angie still does not know the real reason Sammy chose me. Angie's heart stopped. She moved closer to the door. What did Rita mean by that? And more importantly, what was the secret Sammy and Rita had been hiding from her? Angie stood outside the master bedroom, completely frozen. Her hand was still on the wall as she listened to Rita's voice coming from inside. Rita was still speaking on the phone. Sammy told me that Angie has serious issues with her womb and that she cannot carry a pregnancy, Rita said. Angie's eyes widened. She stopped breathing for a moment. Rita continued speaking. Sammy said he is 100% fine. He said whenever they go to see a doctor, he is the one who books the appointment and makes sure the doctor knows what to tell them. Angie's hand slowly moved toward her mouth. Rita laughed softly on the phone. He always gives the doctor money before the appointment. The doctor tells both of them that they have no problem and that they should keep trying. That is why Angie has been taking all those medications and going for all those treatments without knowing the truth. Angie's eyes filled with tears. She could barely stand. Rita continued. Sammy said he did not want Angie to find out because he knew she would be devastated. But honestly, I think he was only afraid of losing her. Angie could hear no more. She slowly stepped backward. One step, then another. She tiptoed down the stairs, trying desperately not to make a sound. When she reached the living room, she collapsed onto the sofa. Her entire body was shaking. For 7 years, she had believed that she and Sammy had a fertility problem. For 7 years, she had gone from one hospital to another. She had swallowed medications. She had endured injections. She had cried after every negative pregnancy test. She had blamed herself. She had even secretly wondered if Sammy would eventually become tired of her because she could not give him a child. And all along, Sammy knew the truth. He knew she could never carry his child. He knew there was nothing wrong with him. He had paid doctors to lie to her. Angie covered her face and began to cry. A few minutes later, she heard footsteps. Sammy walked into the living room again. The moment he saw her face, he knew something had happened. Angie, what is wrong? Sammy asked. Angie slowly looked up. How long were you planning to lie to me? Angie asked. Sammy frowned. What are you talking about? Sammy asked. I heard Rita, Angie said. Sammy became silent. She said you told her I have a problem with my womb, Angie continued. Sammy sighed. Angie stood up. Tell me it is not true, she pleaded. Sammy looked at the floor. Angie, Sammy began. Tell me it is not true, Angie screamed. Sammy finally looked at her. I'm sorry, Sammy said. Angie's heart sank. Sorry, she whispered. Sammy shrugged helplessly. You were not supposed to find out this way, Sammy said. Angie stared at him in disbelief. So it is true. Yes, Sammy admitted. Angie's lips trembled. You knew. I knew, Sammy replied. For how long? Before we got married, Sammy answered. Angie staggered backward. You knew before you married me? Sammy nodded. You knew I had no womb, and you still married me. I loved you, Sammy said. Angie laughed through her tears. If you loved me, why did you lie to me for 7 years? Sammy remained silent. Why did you allow me to suffer? Angie asked. I did not want to hurt you, Sammy replied. You did not want to hurt me. Angie pointed toward the staircase. You allowed me to believe that we were both okay. You watched me cry. You watched me take medications. You watched me travel from hospital to hospital. Sammy lowered his head. I was afraid you would leave me, he admitted. Angie wiped her tears. So instead of giving me the truth, you decided to give me a lie. Sammy had no answer. Angie looked at him for a long moment. Then she asked the question that had been tearing her apart. Did you marry me because you loved me, or because you wanted a woman who would stay with you while you secretly planned to have children with someone else? Sammy looked away. That silence was enough. Angie walked upstairs. She entered the bedroom that had once been hers and Sammy's. She opened the wardrobe and began packing. She packed her clothes, her shoes, her handbags, the jewelry Sammy had bought her over the years. She removed the framed wedding photograph from the bedside table and stared at it. In the photograph, she and Sammy were smiling. They looked happy. They looked like a couple who would grow old together. Angie looked at the photograph one last time, then she placed it face down. She picked up her luggage and walked downstairs. Sammy was sitting in the living room. Angie said nothing. She walked straight to him. She removed her wedding ring. She looked at it for a few seconds. Then she threw it at his feet. The ring landed on the marble floor with a sharp sound. Sammy stared at it. Angie, Sammy called. She did not respond. At that moment, Rita began coming downstairs. She was carrying the baby. Angie. She saw Angie with her luggage. Rita stopped. Sammy immediately stood up, but instead of going after Angie, he walked toward Rita. Give me the baby, Sammy said. Rita handed him the child. Sammy carried the baby and sat down beside Rita. Angie watched them. The man she had loved for 7 years was sitting beside another woman with their child. And strangely, she no longer felt angry. She simply felt empty. She picked up her luggage and walked out. Nobody stopped her. Nobody followed her. Nobody asked where she was going. That was the moment Angie understood something painful. Sometimes the hardest part of living is realizing that the people you thought could not live without you are perfectly comfortable watching you walk away. Angie drove to a house she had purchased years earlier on the mainland. It was a modest but beautiful home, far from the noise of the mansion. For the first few days, she barely ate. She cried in the morning. She cried at night. She cried when she remembered the hospital visits. She cried when she remembered the money she had spent on treatments. She cried whenever she remembered how excited she had been each time she thought she might finally become a mother. But most of all, she cried because she had spent 7 years loving a man who had never respected her enough to tell her the truth. Months passed. Angie slowly began rebuilding herself. She started going out again. She returned to her business. She spent time with people who genuinely cared about her. She stopped blaming herself. One morning, she sat in her living room watching the news. She was drinking tea when suddenly the news presenter interrupted the program. We have breaking news. Angie looked at the screen. Her cup froze halfway to her mouth. The picture of a badly damaged black SUV appeared on the television. Then came the words. Prominent businessman and billionaire, Mr. Sammy Adewale, has died in a fatal road accident. Angie's eyes widened. Her cup slipped from her hand and crashed onto the floor. No, Angie screamed. Her heart began pounding. She stared at Sammy's photograph on the television. For several seconds, she could not move. Even after everything he had done to her, she still could not believe he was dead. She began crying. Not because she wanted him back. Not because she had forgotten what he had done, but because death had suddenly made all their arguments meaningless. A few days later, Sammy was buried. Angie attended the funeral quietly. She stood at a distance. Rita was there holding the baby. Sammy's family members were there. Business associates were there. Friends were there. Everyone mourned the billionaire. But Angie mourned something else. She mourned the man she had once believed Sammy was. After the burial, Sammy's lawyer contacted Angie. Madam Angie, I would like you to come to the house. There is something important concerning the late Mr. Sammy's estate that we need to discuss, the lawyer said. Angie hesitated. What is it about? Angie asked. The reading of the will, the lawyer replied. Angie had no interest in Sammy's money. She almost refused to go. But eventually, she agreed. When she arrived at the mansion, Rita was already there with the baby. Sammy's siblings and other family members were seated in the living room. The atmosphere was tense. The lawyer opened a large brown file. Before we begin, I want everyone to remain calm and allow me to read the document as it was written, the lawyer said. Nobody spoke. He adjusted his glasses. According to the last will and testament of Mr. Sammy Adewale. Angie sat quietly. She was not expecting anything. In fact, she had already decided that she wanted nothing from Sammy. The lawyer continued. 70% of Mr. Sammy Adewale's estate shall go to his legal wife, Mrs. Angie Adewale. The room became silent. Angie lifted her head. What? One of Sammy's brothers asked. The lawyer continued. 20% shall be shared among the members of his immediate family, according to the provisions contained in the document. Sammy's relatives began whispering, the remaining 10% shall be donated to charity. The lawyer closed the document. Rita's face suddenly changed. No, she said. The lawyer looked at her. Excuse me? That cannot be correct, Rita said. The lawyer remained calm. It is exactly what is written in the will. But I have his child, Rita shouted. The lawyer nodded. Why understand? Then why is Angie getting 70%? Rita asked. Because she was his legal wife at the time of his death, the lawyer explained. Rita turned toward Angie. Angie was still sitting quietly. You knew about this? Rita asked. Angie shook her head. No. Rita's anger grew. You planned this. I did not know anything about the will, Angie replied. You are lying. Rita, calm down, the lawyer warned. But Rita was already furious. She suddenly stood up. You took everything from me, Rita screamed. Angie looked at her. I did not take anything from you, Angie said quietly. Your relationship with Sammy was your own decision. Rita looked away. Then something unexpected happened. She grabbed her bag. Everyone watched her. Fine, Rita said angrily. She went upstairs and picked up her belongings and walked toward the door. But then she stopped. She looked at the baby in her arms. For a moment, she stared at him. Then she walked toward Angie. Take him, Rita said. Angie frowned. What? I cannot take care of him, Rita replied. Before Angie could understand what she meant, Rita placed the baby gently on Angie's lap. Angie looked down. The baby stared back at her with innocent eyes. Rita wiped her face. I did not sign up for this, Rita said. Angie stared at her. What are you saying? Angie asked. Rita shook her head. I thought Sammy would take care of everything. I thought I would become a wealthy man's wife. I never imagined I would be left alone with a baby. The room became silent. Angie's eyes filled with tears. She looked at the innocent child. He had done nothing wrong. He had not asked to be born. In the middle of his parents' betrayal, Angie gently held him closer. The baby began crying. Angie began crying too. She looked at Rita. How can you leave your own child? Angie asked. Rita wiped her tears. I cannot do it, Rita whispered. Then she walked away. The door closed behind her. Angie remained seated with the baby in her arms. For several minutes, nobody spoke. She looked down at the tiny face. The child slowly stopped crying. He reached up and wrapped his tiny fingers around one of hers. Angie's heart broke. She remembered all the years she had prayed for a child. She remembered all the years she had asked God why motherhood seemed so far from her. She remembered the doctors, the injections, the tears, the shame, the loneliness. And now, a baby had been placed in her arms in the most painful way possible. Angie held him against her chest. I did not give birth to you, she whispered through her tears. The baby looked at her. But you are innocent, Angie continued. She kissed his forehead. And I will never punish you for the sins of your parents. The lawyer quietly watched her. One of Sammy's family members began crying. Angie stood up with the baby in her arms. She looked around the mansion. The same mansion where she had once been a wife. The same mansion where she had been humiliated. The same mansion where she had discovered the darkest secrets of her marriage. Now, she stood there holding the child who had unknowingly changed her life forever. She could have walked away. She could have left the baby with social services. She could have said, he is not my responsibility. But she remembered something her mother had once told her. A child should never pay for the mistakes of adults. Angie looked at the baby again. You did not choose your father, she whispered. You did not choose your mother. She wiped her tears. and you did not choose the circumstances that brought you into this world. She kissed his forehead again. But I will choose what happens to you from today. 1 year later, Angie's life had completely changed. She did not remarry. She focused on her businesses and raised the child. She named him Samuel. Not because she wanted to honor the man who had betrayed her, but because she wanted the boy to grow up, knowing that his identity would never be determined by the mistakes of his father.